So very good morning, everyone. This is an absolute August gathering in August. So we are here to discuss a fantastic topic which India Employment Forum has designed for us. And I'm sure all of us are going to really enjoy because our speakers are amazing. So our topic is understanding and navigating India's complex compliance universe. So we're going to spend 1 hour or so with you, and we are here. We know that we have audience from pan India, if not globe. So our speakers are amazing. So you might have already seen that we are joined by Nidhi Prasad, Director HR and Compliance, Ather Energy, Jitin Parekh, Chief Compliance and Legal Officer, Eagle Life, Rishi Agarwal, CEO and co-founder of Team Lease RegTech. I'm going to briefly introduce them. I'm sure you know about them. LinkedIn and all social media makes it possible, but it's a great opportunity to introduce them and make us know more about them before I hand it over to my dear speakers. So welcome speakers. I'm going to introduce you one by one. So we have Nidhi Prasad, as I mentioned, she's the Director HR and Compliance Ather Energy. Nidhi Prasad is with Ather Energy for 19 years. She has experience in building high-performing and customer-centric organizations. As an HR leader, she has focused on industrial relations and HR business partnerships with responsibilities spanning the intersection of business, culture, and people management. In her most recent role, Nidhi was responsible for setting up the greenfield factory of Ather at Hosur. So welcome, Nidhi. Now also Rishi Agarwal, co-founder and CEO of Team Lease RegTech. Rishi Agarwal has been working closely with different central ministries, think tanks, and industry association to highlight India's regulatory complexity and make a case for rationalization, decriminalization, and digitization. He has recently co-authored a report titled Jailed for Doing Business, which puts a spotlight on disproportionate criminality in India's employer compliance. He has recently published a coffee table book titled Varanasi, A Gateway to Immortality. Welcome, Rishi.
Thank you, Dr. Guma.
Now we have Jitin Parekh, Chief Compliance Officer from Eagle Life. He has close to 26 years of experience in legal, secretarial, and compliance function. Over the last 12 years with Eagle Life, Jitin has overseen various business functions of the company in addition to the core areas of legal, secretarial, and compliance. Jitin is fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India and a degree in law from Mumbai University. Welcome, Jitin.
Thank you, Dr. Uma.
Thank you so much, and I'm here as your moderator. So I'm going to, touch upon the topic a bit before I request all our speakers to speak in a certain, with some kind of questions we got, which is very, very interesting. So I'm going to really start, asking questions before I get on to some kind of audience handling. So audience, get ready. So when we're talking about India's employer regulatory cholesterol universe is a vast and complex. There are more than 69,000 compliances with over 26,000 of them having imprisonment clauses in India, and over 25,000 of the total compliances are from the central government side. These numbers are in a nutshell show how difficult it is to do business in India, with smaller companies suffering more to be compliant with their smaller budgets. Reports show that out of 63 million enterprises spread across India, there are only 1 million formal employers. More than 98% of Indian employers stay small by choice. This breeds informal, subscale, and uncompetitive enterprises that don't have the productivity to grow, pay minimum wages, or afford to offer workers social security. Adding complexity to this mesh is the fact that the regulatory compliance change at a rate that's administratively astonishing. You need an army of compliance officers to keep track of, leave alone file these changes. In this webinar, we would like to actually highlight ways to navigate, understand India's complex compliance universe and how the regulatory framework requires a reboot. So I think with the help of our speakers, we can definitely make it simpler. And yes, things are complex, but we have experts here probably who would be able to help us how to take care of our own need. So I'm going to speak, to each one of you and ask a question, and each one of you can take your turn as a round robin to share your views, and we would love to know more and more from you. So my first question to all of you: more than 26,000 of the compliances have imprisonment clauses. Does the criminalization of compliance procedures hinder India's growth and development as a business hub? So I'll start, who is in the first on my screen, with Rishi. So Rishi, why don't you begin?
Sure. Well, Dr. Runa, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. An excellent topic, close to our heart. That's what we've been doing for many years now. Absolutely, 26,134 to be precise among the 69,233 compliances, which makes it about 37%. Or in terms of numbers, 2 out of every 5 compliances have provision for jail term. It is a big hindrance, a big hurdle in India's growth story. You mentioned that 63 million enterprises are there in India. Among them, only 1 million are formal enterprise. Let me build on this number. Only 500,000 are active contributors to ESI and PF. Only 70,000 have revenues of greater than 5 crores. Only 23,500 have a paid up share capital of more than 10 crores. And only about 8,000 out of them are listed. So if you look at the number, we have under 10,000 enterprise who actually can tap into our capital markets, have the growth, have the size, have the scale, have the geographical presence in order to become productive, because they can leverage the economies of scale which come with a large business. And our regulatory cholesterol with 2 out of 5 compliances of 26,000 with jail term has created a big hindrance. Why? Because majority of the enterprises have decided to stay small and informal. Now I'll present a counter hypothesis. Imagine you move the formal enterprises from 1 million to 2 million. Just increase the formal enterprises among the 63 million from 1 million to 2 million. What is going to happen? Each one of these formal enterprises will hire an additional 18 or 19 people, because right now they hire about 2 people. That means we are going to create 20 million new additional formal jobs, which are well paid with social security attached to them, where enterprises have access to supply chains, access to capital, they have bank accounts, they can actually buy technology, they have access to supply chains. All of these are going to be benefits which, compounding over 5 to 10 years, will take us closer to our dream of becoming a $10 trillion economy. So I would rest my case there, but absolutely, this is a huge problem. The ingrained hostility, ingrained distrust in our regulatory ecosystem has created huge hurdles for our progress.
Thank you, Rishi. And I'm super excited to hear that when you go smaller to bigger, how much employment will increase. And I'm sure the way we are looking at our, the organizers, India Employer Forum, is actually banking upon and how we bring more and more such realization. Thank you for, setting the tone beautifully. Now, I would go to Nidhi as a corporate professional. Where do you see, is there any possibility we look into, or how do you respond to the question? Nidhi, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Runa. To me, when we look at any ecosystem, there are a lot of stakeholders. There is an employer on one side, there are the employees on the one side. The place where the employees live forms the social structure around it. And then there are regulatory authorities, and then there is a government which makes the policies. So in any ecosystem, for it to thrive and grow, there is an equal participation, where each of them becomes an equal partner for the progress. We cannot progress one at the cost of the other. So it cannot be a zero-sum sort of a ratio which we should be looking at. So in the criminalization, what we have done is we have actually tried to upset the power balance. Not each stakeholder is equal. Now, coming to the numbers, which, just Rishi quoted, it's so difficult for, number of compliances just increases as and when you increase or you grow your business. But suppose, like a person as an entrepreneur has opened a shop in a very small town, okay, and he's providing employment. Now, if he doesn't pay wages constantly, it's a non-compliance. And that's not something which would, in turn, would harm the entire ecosystem. However, suppose he's not putting it in a particular format which the authorities are asking, then it is something which need not be given the same amount of punishment. There is a very fine need to draw the line. Drawing the line would be the criteria here as per me. Now, suppose you are compliant to say 100 of the things. There's one place where you're non-compliant. You're compliant with all your registers, you're compliant with all your returns, but you're not doing your periodic maintenance in a boiler plant. What happens? It causes loss of life. It causes life. The ecology system gets difficult, it could harm. So it is also on the quantum or the impact, which these compliance laws are trying to take in picture. So my theory would be, we have to build the balance in the ecosystem. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. I think your balanced approach being from the corporate world makes a lot of sense, especially the kind of experience you have, Nidhi. And I fully understand when you're saying managing so many registers, sometimes manually, we would definitely talk about technology support, but at the same time, I guess, one gets very overwhelmed by more and more, especially post-pandemic, a lot of things changed. So I think, Jitin would give us more insight from his experience, and let's hear from Jitin. How is your response to this question?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Uma, for having me here. It's a wonderful opportunity to talk about the compliance. And I would say best of the compliance professional in India, even he will miss the compliance by, as Rishi quoted, the sheer number of compliances that we need to ensure, more than 60,000 compliances. And that makes me believe that India is one of the largest, or the most regulated countries in the world, right? And therefore, it increases the complexities, compliances, and obviously it affects the business. In fact, from where I come, regulated industry, we have a separate reporting department who takes care of only reporting, right? And that tells us about how regulated we are, right? I would like to bring to a very different aspect about this criminalization of clauses in the Indian jurisdiction or law, that many of our laws are still pre-independence, right? And the way laws were made during pre-independence were very different. The authorities were very different, and the same concept continues. The trust deficit continues, correct? And that can be seen in the recently enacted GST law. It still has criminal law or the sections, right? So the mindset that with which we create law is not changed, and it needs change, right? And somewhere we believe that harsher the law, the less of the non-compliances, which is absolutely not correct. In fact, people evade law because of harsher provisions. Okay, so that's one. And as Rishi mentioned, more than 25,000 reasons for us to go in jail, right? Businessmen or a compliance professional. That's very worrisome, correct? Normally, the criminal provision should apply in a rare case where civil law or the administrative reforms have failed. That's where it should come. But reality in India is very different, right? The problem gets acute in my view because the judicial infrastructure is not there to manage this set of cases. You see, cases go on for years after years, right? And therefore it makes more difficult to come out of these issues or litigations or cases that are getting filed or faced by the businesses. So these are some of the things which I will say that in India doing business is not easy. Especially look at the imprisonment clauses which Rishi mentioned. So absolutely, I would believe that we need decriminalization at a faster pace.
Very encouraging, because you are definitely talking about being progressive, especially when you mentioned about so many things are pre-independence. And sometimes really we wonder whether our education system or, the way we are doing business, the corporate, the small enterprises, the startups, we are getting caught. Even the evolution is not letting go the previous, many formulation of policies, processes, even for that matter. Many of them probably, if you curate, they are irrelevant. I think it's a humongous task. I'm sure all of you are legendaries and you would probably help to do that over the period of time. Especially such webinars help to wake up the people, or where we definitely would like to push, and curate and come to the point. And when I'm talking about policy, my next question is, what role can the larger policy fraternity play in reconstructing a compliance climate that benefits the economy and the country's entrepreneurial spirit? So I think when we talk about entrepreneur, I'll go to, again, Rishi, because I guess it's not by design. Now I'm going to change the sequence, but I think it can very naturally come to Rishi, because let's set again the tone from the entrepreneur spirit. Yeah, Rishi.
So, Dr. Runa, policy fraternity has a big role to play by far. In India, compliances are largely facilitated by service providers. There are labor consultants, a few tens of thousands. There are chartered accountancy firms who help with direct tax, indirect tax, and all the other matters around it. There are practicing company secretaries, 10 to 20,000 active practicing company secretaries in India who actually help with all the company law and SEBI compliances. There are EHS consultants who deal with all of EHS compliances. There are, industrial licensing experts who deal with all kinds of licenses, registrations, and so on and so forth. And there are a number of think tanks who are an important participant in this exercise. All of them play a very, very important role in keeping corporate India compliant. One of the key roles is they break information asymmetry. Unfortunately, compliances in India is very complex. A regular person who is an entrepreneur and say they have just started an entrepreneurial venture or a startup, they cannot read a 220-page Factories Act. They cannot interpret half of what is said in the Factories Act. Some of the things are dated, right? Whitewashing the latrines every 4 months, right? Constituting canteen committees, right? Whitewashing other things, maintaining temperature and humidity and taking few measurements every day in a day, where IoT-based equipments can actually record temperature 24/7 on a continuous basis. We record heartbeats on our smartwatches, 24/7, 365. And some of these are silent participants in our manufacturing. Unfortunately, the way the laws have been written, the way they are interpreted, the way they are enforced, there are huge transmission losses. So the policy fraternity is the one who actually helps interpret them, implement them, report on them, liaise with the authorities as and when inspections happen. They are the people who are building digital tools. We are one of the leading digital companies focused on transforming compliance with technology. We have an important role to play there. We are helping corporates stay on the right side of the law, and so are other participants in this industry. They raise a lot of noise around the need for rationalization, simplification, digitization, and decriminalization, so that they can get the spotlight on all the right problem areas and help and enable the ease of doing business in the country. So that's, in my opinion, the role of policy fraternities, service providers, consultants, who are actually enablers in the process of compliance in India.
That's awesome, Rishi. Very, very encouraging to know that. I really love the talk about policies are there. Who will break it down and make us understand? I think somewhere our internet era is taking away our time to have that diligent reading. When you said 220 factory acts, believe me, when we started our career, we read it. But now no one wants to read, forget about memorizing because of the new environment. So having said that, Jitin, Nidhi, any one of you can probably mention, so how does it work for you in your corporate environment? And both of you are different side of the practitioner. One is a expert as company secretary, legal, etc. Nidhi, you are the probably the internal client in terms of user of the compliance. So who wants to go first? That how do you interpret? And I love the way Rishi talked about being an enabler and so many set of practitioners, which Rishi mentioned. So how do you utilize that? Where your role, is there for policy, making, or whichever way you would like to respond to this question. Yeah, who goes first?
And Nidhi can go first.
Okay, thanks, Jitin. I would say, I look at it like more from like if you are increasing a company size, from 100 member to a 200 member, the compliances increase like not at the same ratio. It increases at a much higher rate. So what usually would help as an employer or, for us, instead, if we want to go to one state to a different state, if we have a single portal for application. Now, there are state governments which are allowing, single portal for a manufacturing setup to set up. But what happens, we have to submit the same information at multiple places. There is no central repository. The systems do not talk to each other. There would be an EHS consultant you would engage in. There would be a labor consultant you would be engaging in. And also, if the policymakers could ease, it could be like a self-declaration. Like I'll comply with so-and-so and maybe do an audit once in a year or once in 2 years sort, and then once your application is done and you do a self-regulatory check, because putting in punishment is not deterring, it's only making more and people come to the unorganized sector. And see, even if we see today also in an unorganized sector like the garment industry, there is still distribution by cash. Government has banned salary disbursement by cash long back. But if we go around, we still know that it is there. So if you make it more easier for people to be compliant as a policymaker, it would ensure greater compliance and people would prefer to be on the compliant side of the line, which I discussed earlier also. What happens here is like we try to find ways to evade because it's very complicated. And for as a young entrepreneur or as a young organization, you might not have so much of fun to invest in or have an army of compliance officers sitting with you. So that is a real challenge. And if policymakers can help with that, it would really help. Yeah, Jitin.
Yeah. So, Dr. I will take it I will answer it in a two way. One is internally for us. What we do, how do we become more compliant, right? And as I said, in insurance, we are the most regulated industry. So what we do that we train all our personnel on compliance aspects. Generally, the sales or the other staff of the company, they don't want to understand compliance. They don't want to look at it. They just come to us and say what to do about this. And that's where we have started practice that, train the staff so that it becomes ingrained as a culture to be compliant. That is one. Second, when we say that how larger policy fraternity can reconstruct the compliance climate, see, like all of us, we have our goals for the year, right? As an organization or as an entity. Country also can become an organization, and government and policy framers can create priorities or can define what priorities they want to set, because ultimately the business, if the business is running, then the goal of the country is getting achieved in terms of the employment or the tax collection and all. And to some extent government is doing it, but what I would say is that focus on key objectives where government wants the entrepreneurs to focus on, and in my view only two. There should not be tax leakages and formal creation of employment, equal pay, equal the social measures are getting applied. These are the areas where government and policy fraternity should understand. If they are in compliance with a lot of things are getting done even without compliance requirements. So that way, I think policy framers can create a compliance culture and trust the entities, trust the entrepreneurs that they will comply with the required expectations.
Yeah. So Jitin, Nidhi, more or less, you're highlighting how to make it simpler, easier, user-friendly, while Rishi talked about how to make it, more facilitation mode in terms of understanding. I think, Nidhi, you made a very strong point that if things are not so complicated, people won't evade it. I think that's a beautiful point you made. And Jitin, you also talked about from internal and external, culture building point of view. If you have a climate, who wants to break the rule? No one. I think if you look at our day-to-day life, right from your, domestic environment, the value system we have, when we go for work, when you are on the street, everywhere there is some structure, and we all comply like a second nature. I think things become more complicated, as you mentioned, both of you, that why it is not understood. Typically when we put technology, we said user experience. Whenever we create platform, apps, so user experience, iska UI acha nahi hai, iska UX acha nahi hai. So I think time has come that probably all of you with your wisdom can probably highlight my few points that how can government policies help in the reduction of the compliance burden from employers? If all eminent speakers, all three of you, can get some anecdotal points, maybe you've already created some list of items which you would like to recommend, and from such forums which India employer forums are creating, a lot of content actually goes to the right authorities. And I love the way Jitin, you said that if the country is an organization, probably Prime Minister is a CEO. Yeah. And
Yeah, absolutely.
the levels are ministers. I think that's a great point you mentioned. So may I go back to you, and how would you be the change catalyst and put your viewpoints? What can be done by government? Please, who wants to go first on this?
Yeah, maybe I can go, Dr. Uma. So, you know, in last 60, 65 years, so decriminalization also means that whatever laws are not wanted or have become redundant by the passage of time, you take them out of the system. And one data suggests that last 65 years, as a country, we have just repealed around 1,300 laws in India. But in last 7, 8 years, the present government has repealed more than 2,000 laws. And there is a from time to time the law commission gives the report to the parliament for repealing of laws, and that's one of the stated goals of the prime minister, that to make the law simplify the compliance or ease of doing business in India. In fact, even finance minister stated that the decriminalization of company law, and that was twice the efforts were made to decriminalize various sections of the company law, and from the jail sentences, even the penalties were imposed. So in a way, government is on it, and that's a good sign of it. The other thing, what I would like that apart from repealing the law is also the ease of compliance. And now again here the government is making efforts, though obviously not yielded results. The labor code, there are 4 labor codes now. It's been made effective but not yet implemented. And with those coming into play, more than 30 labor laws are going to get confined into 4 broad categories of law, right? And that will certainly ease compliance across industry, across small, medium, and large enterprises. That is one. From an industry point of view, again, recently IRDAI, which is the insurance regulator, has started a significant drive to reduce compliance. And in fact, a committee has been set up with industry representation, where the committee's task is to look at the existing insurance laws and suggest how we can, rationalize those laws in terms of reporting compliances. And that's a very welcome move. And one very good example I will give that I don't know whether this audience or all of us are aware. Insurance company was never used to allow, just start selling a product. it used to take months for IRDA to approve the products before we launch in the market. And one fine day, regulator allowed in June 2022, regulator allowed companies to create products and just go to the market. Look at the change, and that's very significant change. So yeah, in terms of what government can do, a lot of things are happening, maybe at faster pace. What is need is what I can think of.
Thank you, Jitin, for giving such a fantastic example of IRDA, and it's so much, entwined with day-to-day life of every individual, all of us. I mean, whether it's health security, whether you talk about moving on the roads, my God, the line of paperwork we used to do earlier, it just becomes so less now. I think great example of IRDA, and probably I would love to request back, once we hear from Nidhi and Rishi, I'll come back to probably think by then. How would you take is this IRDA example of curating and reducing the number of laws and still making it, pliable? So which all other possible such structures can be done, or who are the authorities who can help? So I'll park that with you. So I'll go to Rishi now. Rishi, would you like to give your expertise on this particular question?
Sure, Dr. Runa. We've been talking about a 3-vector framework with rationalize, digitize, and decriminalize in order to change the trajectory of India's GDP growth. We have, as far as rationalize is concerned, we have 69,233 unique compliances in the country. The question is, do we really need so many? Can we accomplish the same outcome without having so many regulations in there? When you drill them down further, you will realize that there are 30% acts and rules which are labor, but 48% compliances are from labor, and a whopping 68% criminality comes from labor. So when you do a Pareto principle on this ecosystem, you will realize that it's important to start with labor. 75th year of independence we are celebrating next week, and it has taken us all these years to figure out a reform on labor, which affects all the labor force in India. But our labor laws, they cover only 9% of the labor force of India. The rest 91% is still languishing in informal setup. So we really need to expedite the codification of labor laws for the next generation. Some of our labor laws were written in 1923, 26, 33, 1948. The world has changed. In the last 10 years, the world has changed. When I was going to the IIT or the IIM, there was no concept of commercially available internet or digital payments or an Uber and Ola for urban transportation or a Swiggy and Zomato for food ordering or Netflix and other OTT platforms. The world has changed, but our laws have not. So if we have to design the country for the next millennium, some of these laws the archaic laws have to be put in the museum, and we have to rethink some of them. From a rationalized point of view, we think there is a lot of duplication, overlaps, and redundancy in our laws. Within the labor, there are 10 different formats in which you have to do wage register, 12 different formats for, the muster rolls, the accident registers, and so on and so forth. Every department has created their own formats. The objective was never for an employer to fill out 12 different formats and keep track of over 4,000 regulatory changes in a year. In order to try and protect 9% of the labor force, we have created life so difficult for an entrepreneur, they don't want to invest and create jobs anymore. So that part has to change. Second, digitization. The world has changed. 800 million Indians have access to a smartphone with a constantly, perpetually connected low-cost internet connection. They are consuming everything from Netflix to digital payments online. Billions of digital payments are happening every month. So India is ready for the digital leap. But have our regulatory ecosystem leveraged that? Do we have a unique enterprise number which has one entity like Aadhaar? Do we have one entity for corporate? No. Today we have 23 identities at least for corporates. We have a PF number, we have an ESI number, we have a SIN number, we have a DIN number, we have a GST number, we have a TAN number, and I can go on. PT number and LWF number. Why do we need so many numbers? Can't we have a single identity for a corporate which can get registered? Why do we have so many paperwork? Every department asks for a certificate or a registration issued by another authority. You take millions of copies of printouts every year. You attest them yourself. Why can't you have a version of DigiLocker for enterprises? Enterprise DigiLocker. All the documents that government issues to you should be consigned to a DigiLocker. And any department of the government should be able to view those documents upon clearances. Why can't we have, online portals for online filings? IEF and ESI need to have straight-through processing, where from a vendor ecosystem, you can create a return, you can initiate a payment, and automatically it goes to the website authority without you having to log on to a website and click 13 times before you can find the right menu items and then upload a manually created file. Why can't we have MCA initiate straight-through filings? So that from a vendor ecosystem, like what we do in taxes, today you can prepare your taxes on any platform and with a click of a button file them. You don't have to have an ID on the tax website of the government. So a lot of work has to be done in digitization for straight-through filings, for national open compliance grid. We've been talking about opening up all these APIs with the pub-sub framework, exchanging information in a seamless manner. India is ready for that. And we need to take advantage of that. And last but not the least, decriminalize. And there's a whole 109-page paper that we have recently worked on. Gautam Chikarmane and I co-authored that report on jailed for doing business, where we have put a detailed framework with 10 major and 31 minor recommendations to take care of all these criminal items. The ingrained hostility, the ingrained distrust that we have in the regulations need to go. Inability to or failing to whitewash the inner walls of latrine once every 4 months cannot put an entrepreneur behind bars. We are in the 21st century. Half of these toilets actually have ceramic tiles all the way to the ceiling. But guess what? Our laws were written in 1948 when chuna lagana or whitewashing was the main way of treating these walls. But do our regulations need to keep pace? The answer is yes. Government needs to do a lot in creating a friendly environment where companies or micro enterprises are not scared of moving from a micro level to a formal enterprise. Because today, the moment you go from informal to formal, 400 compliances become applicable to you. You have to spend 12 lakhs a year in order to take care of consultants, the labor consultant, the direct tax consultant, the indirect tax consultant, the EHS consultant, and so on and so forth. So all of these things need a complete rethink. A lot of work needs to be done here. There is a framework that has been put together, and good is not the enemy of the great. We have to start with good, and eventually in 10 years, I think we'll get to greatness.
Rishi, you are awesome. I think you have put my mind into dichotomy. I'm going to go to Nidhi, but prior to that, I want to address it. And Nidhi, maybe you can highlight, because in certain way, Rishi, we are talking about, how do you prune the whole situation? I love the way you talked about why do we have to fill so many forms? Why can't we digitalize it? And we're talking about digital era. And in fact, I wanted to ask you about how digitization helps and where do you see it already answered. And I want even Nidhi and Jitin to highlight more. However, when we talk about digitalization post-pandemic, which is creating work from anywhere and all the new digital space, I think one thing probably you not only you're talking about legal matters and all the laws have not changed. I think people have also now redefined roles as far as employment is concerned. I think organizations like India Employee Forum would help us to again highlight that if you want to make a change and recreate this environment, probably we have to recreate the roles. Otherwise, people feel so cocooned to their own set of activities. Like if I am a tax compliance officer, if my job gets digitized, what will I do tomorrow? Where my employment structure would be, and what do I do? As people probably not only not learning new stuff, they're also not learning how to be relevant in new world. So I think you triggered a thought, Rishi, by actually talking about introduction of unified atmosphere, or more digitally and otherwise. Unique number was brilliant. Thank you. So Nidhi, how to say, it's since the corporate world is taking the entire demand and supply of employees, recreating roles, recreating culture, recreating environment. How would you respond to this, in view of compliance as well? That if you have to reduce your, compliance and digitize it and do more, what will you do? Would you ask these people to leave who are reporting? Or would you recreate, with help of technology? I really want you to highlight few things when you're talking about how, government policy is impacting as well as corporate is enabling and absorbing and recreating. I hope my question was not too long.
No, it was not. So for me, the first basic premise, with which we have to work is we are equal partners and stakeholders. Any government policy or anything which they make cannot be working in isolation. So all the frameworks have to be relooked, like there are laws which have to be sunset. So there are few things when you join in, government might not have enough and more confidence on you, and they would have put certain aspects. Having said that, it doesn't mean that for all those things you will put a criminal charge against it. It can be as simple as a financial penalty. But over a period of time, when you know that the person is contributing and there is no willful negligence, in such cases, we should work and look for alternates and have them into the ecosystem where there is an equal say of a self-declaration mode. And there is the bigger challenge in the ecosystem is we don't know which tools to use. The consultants cost is huge, day in and day out, slowly increasing. And just to keep ourselves updated, we need to hire more and more people into a system. So a simple dashboard, which tells me, at a click of a button, what is it that I need to be complied for? And what is the greater purpose? Sometimes my dashboard will be all green. And, the spirit behind it has been lost. And even the way the lawmakers or the government is forming the laws, at times it is just like, we want to appear righteous. And we feel that, the entrepreneur community or the larger business community are all at fault. They are exploiting and that's how they are becoming rich. While there is a concept of wealth sharing and, it's no longer a police state with which we are working on. So how do we strive to bring that balance and also see that the spirit is maintained? There are alternatives to ensure compliances. It is not like you have like 1,500 things to comply with and only then, you are working in the interest of the organization or interest of the company. The idea is not to punish or to catch you doing wrong, but it is to enable you to do the right thing for the organization, for the ecosystem, the larger ecosystem and the community. So how do we do that? How do we ensure that as an entrepreneur, I need to know, like what is it that I need to do? Reading a long labor laws and after another labor law, even though with code of wages, we are yet to see the light of the day. And we have been in talks like from last 4 years that it's coming. In which form does it come? How does it actually simplify our life? Are the bigger questions which we have to answer.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And we are getting so many questions by audience. I'm going to. Are you all okay? All right. So I'm going to pick up the audience questions now, and we have got quite a plenty of them. And before I get there, I'm really going to thank you for highlighting such fantastic areas. I think it became so diverse from all three of you. Probably that's why we have so many questions from audience. So I'm quickly going to take it up. And the first question is from, I'm going to read out because it's from a ID of a Samsung phone. And may I request someone who has probably logged in from 2 devices to switch on the mic, switch off the mic for one. Otherwise, it is creating that noise. Okay, so Deepak Patil is saying, we are from Beck and Pulitzer, India. We basically provide services in engineering companies to execute the project's works. For compliance purpose, we remit PF ESIC through our code and wages are paid by the third party agency. Is it okay as compliance point of view? Who would like to take it? Rishi, would you like to respond to it?
I would want to avoid speaking about very advisory oriented questions here.
Okay.
Happy to take them offline.
All right.
More.
I'll go to Jitin. So sorry. Yeah, I got it. Jitin, would you like to give some insight? And we are all disclaimer that these are definitely subject to the question as much as information you have provided, because these are very critical questions that relates to a lot of insight. So this is the first hand information which Jitin is giving, but you might have to go deeper, right, Jitin?
Sorry, what was the question? I lost you in between.
No problem. So the person is saying we are from Bacon Pulitzer, basically provide engineering services to various plant locations. For client compliance purpose, we need to pay PF ASIC from our subcode and payment third part as payment third party agency. Is it okay? Suggest your opinion how we can manage and which is good practice.
So I will give answers to the best of my understanding. I don't think so it is correct to pay through a subcode, but the concerned person can take the proper guidance from the consultant. But to my understanding, it's not correct.
Thank you, Jitin. It seems to be. I think one has to be very, very clear. And to be very honest, Jatinji, a lot of informations are available internet on your basic compliance before, and talk probably with your consultant, as Jitin has said, to be knowledgeable. Otherwise, this is a very, very basic question. So I think, Jitin, thank you for highlighting it. The next question is from Mukund Ijare. He's asking, when can we expect the labor codes to be effective and how the organization need to be ready for the same? I think this is two questions, set. So I will go for the first one to Rishi. Do you have a view on it? And organization readiness, I'll request Nidhi and Jatin to quickly, support.
So, Dr. Runa, labor codes is in two parts. First, preparation or the plumbing by the union and the states, which is where the four codes have already been legislated by the union government through the parliament. All of that work was done in 2019 and 21 respectively. The rules, the draft rules came out, they were put out for public scrutiny. All the states have started doing it. With all the states and union territories, I think it forms 37 combinations to be precise, with 28 states and 9 union territories. I think over 30 of them have already gone ahead and published one or more draft rules, and more are coming through every day. Bottom line, from a plumbing point of view, from a preparation point of view, the union and states are starting to get there. When will it become live is a socio-political and economic question, which is above my pay grade, and I'll not be able to answer that.
But I think I'll before I go to Nidhi and Jitin for implementation piece, Hariharan L is asking, when do you expect this to be implemented? Labor code implemented in Pan India. So I think, Rishi, is there any expectation in terms of timeline?
So there was a rumor that they were supposed to notify implementation as of July 1st. There was a recent information in the news media, but obviously that didn't happen. But when this kind of rumor is there in the air, it's clear that the preparation is starting to get to the finish line, and any day it can come through. But as I said earlier, this is a larger question. There are political implications, and the government will have to choose a timing. But as far as preparation in plumbing is concerned, I think the country is almost there.
So the preparation in plumbing, I'll go to Nidhi and Jitin from both of you. There'll be good insight for audience to how to really, either prepare for implement. Yeah, you have raised a hand. Sorry, Nidhi, if I didn't see that.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. But, prep is the most important, and Rishi is harping on it that, whatever it is, wherever the days are, 1st July or 1st September, if you're ready, so how do you prepare yourself? Both of you, one by one, if you can share.
Yeah, I can share what we have been doing. And as Rishi said, we are hearing that it's coming. And somehow we have not seen the light at the end of the tunnel. We were quite hopeful that on 1st April 22 it would have got implemented, but that not happened. What we understand, and we are talking to various consultants, law firms, to understand what it is, because there are multiple interpretations, multiple known issues which we need to be ready with or dealt with. 1st October, 1st July, every quarter end is now a implementation date. But yeah, we are talking to, we are in the phase of understanding the implications to our organization and what changes we will have to make. And in my personal view, the day it gets implemented effective, it will take at least 6 to 9 months, if not more, to actually implement in a way. It won't be upside down 360-day turn. That's what my understanding is.
So Nidhi, I think we got good answer from Jitin. I'm sure you both can add, and especially Nidhi, but there are more questions, rather we answer them. So I'm taking the next question from Hariharan L, and Nidhi, you can maybe, can respond. Do you recommend any web tool to comply with various compliance and enable the appropriate dashboard for review?
In this forum, I won't be in a position to comment on which tech tool to use, but there are multiple available. So depending on the need of the organization and the stage in which the organization is, there are tools which are available, and the organization needs to do its due diligence to, use a tool. But tool definitely makes the life easy for us.
So probably as an individual level, especially, tools should be looked at from the life cycle of an organization, from the size of the organization, from the cost, consumption, various aspects. I think Nidhi has beautifully highlighted how to be very diligent and, how when you use it, but usage is definitely supportive. I think that's what you mentioned. The next question is very interesting, and I'm constantly looking at watch because we are getting poured with questions. So this is anonymous attendee, wish you had shared your name. So is by exploring another way, can't the conglomerate companies sign an online petition to send a message to government for decriminalizing such a compliance law? The Indian Employer Forum can initiate that. So I'm wondering, all three of you, whether Indian Employer Forum should respond to it, or should you also give your comment? What do you say? Should I repeat the question, or you have absorbed the question? You. Should we sign a petition? Does it help?
Petitions do help, but there is already work in progress, and there are different agencies which have done their part to it. And if you see, there is a constant thought process around it, and the report which was just got published, where she has been a co-author. It is the first time, where it has got enough and more media attention to it, and it's only a matter of time. I'm very optimistic that things which do not require a criminal prosecution will get removed.
Thank you, Nidhi. So I'll quickly take the next one. Mukesh Thakkar is asking, and please be concise because we have to, we are at ticking time. So Mukesh would like to know your thoughts on how to change the mindset of many of the small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to bring in more compliances, as they tend to find shortcuts for not to be compliant. Who would like to cover? Rishi, you nodded.
Yeah, sure. Mukesh, great question. It's a choice that entrepreneurs make. If you stay on the right side of the law, sky is the limit. You can go to any size. If you want to stay informal, fly under the radar, you can do so, but then growth will become a victim. So the choice is really the entrepreneurs, but I don't think there is any option today to understand compliances and to be on the right side of the law if you genuinely want to grow. That mindset shift is required. And I'm so glad to see that so many young startups are coming up. All of these, when they are solving a real world problem, they're also figuring out how to stay on the right side of the law. So while the government is doing its bit and can do more and faster, but I don't think hope is a strategy here. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse for non-compliance. Entrepreneurs need to understand the legal and regulatory framework of the place where they do business. There is no option there. So sooner they understand this, the better off they will be.
I'll take one more question from Apeksha Malu Hariharan. I responded to your previous question, so I'm taking Apeksha as a last question. She's asked, compliance is treated as a cost center, so should we treat technology as a necessity or luxury? Very good one. Who wants to respond?
I would certainly want to take a stab.
Yeah.
Let Jitin and Nidhi talk about.
Yes, what I understand is technology. What's the question?
Since compliance is treated as a cost center, so should we treat technology as a necessity or a luxury?
Technology has become a necessity. It's no more a luxury. It's part and parcel of our life beyond compliance. That is one. And I would say the mindset that the compliance is a cost center should change. Compliance is not a cost center anymore. Compliance is an investment that you make to avoid these kind of frivolous litigations, penalties, fines, and harassment, right? And if you do right compliance with the right set of mind, I think it's not tough. And I just like to add one comment. The answer which Rishi made. We have a lot of open forum, open APIs nowadays. Even the government is trying to create an open marketplace with a concept called ONDC, like a UPI framework, right? For compliance also, there should be a platform like UPI, where any entrepreneur or any business can just go there. It's available free of cost, and you can at least understand what needs to get complied.
Thank you so much. I think we are at the fag end of our day, and for the webinar. And Hariharan, I think you asked a very pertinent question: why government keeps changing the form? I think you can comment on that. If he asks, the form क्यों change होता है?
So Hariharan, that's a very good question. I keep asking that question. Have asked this question for the last many years. Not just a form change, there are over 4,000 regulatory changes that happen in India. At least 600 of them are affecting a very small entrepreneur in India every year. There are 2,233 websites which publishes these regulatory changes, right from change of forms to change of date to one-time extensions to change of duty and rate structures to change of interest and penalty and so on and so forth. So form is not the only change that the government does. I think as we talk more and more about it, there is increased awareness that a regulatory impact assessment before regulatory changes is absolutely must. Changes for the heck of it, right? Because a commissioner has changed, the officer has changed, an IAS has changed, and because they want to show an upgrade or an update is not good enough. There has to be a logical reasoning to why these changes are absolutely must, how they affect the life of an entrepreneur, because staying on top of 2,233 websites is not easy. So change of form is not the only one. Don't worry about it. You are not the only person affected. There are 1 million plus entrepreneurs in India who grapple with this problem. And as ecosystem partners, it's our job to keep talking about it and keep figuring out solutions. I can give you one solution. We have a wonderful website in teamleadsregtech.com, which is free. Please go. You can find all the regulatory changes right there. You can also download Rulesbook app, which is a free resource for all entrepreneurs to stay on top of all regulatory change. You don't need to browse 2,233 websites on your behalf. We are doing that every day.
Fantastic. I think thank you all of you. We didn't realize that how 1 hour flew and it's the last minute to thank each one of you. Thank you Nidhi, thank you Jitin, thank you Rishi, thank you India Employee Forum for creating such a fantastic framework, structure and design, everything, all kudos goes to you. And we had brilliant questions from audience, so thank you audience for being there and be with us. Of course, you can see a lot of changes are happening. Change will keep happening, so let's all be change agent and demand more and supply more. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.